Just a few minutes before we start, folks, just admitting people in, and Neil's here already, so we're good to go.
I'm waiting in the background.
Neil, I think maybe we should get going. There's quite a few people here. We
No
have
problem.
a full house, so we already have, I think, 60 people who've joined. So
great. Okay, I'll stop sharing the screen just to come up on picture myself for a moment, and then I'll go back to that. We're getting a lot of people arriving. Can you hear the beeps in the background?
Yeah, it's only you and me who can hear it. Is that irritating for you?
That's all right. It just come out on the microphone. Fine. Stop sharing, and I'll pop up on the video. So there we are. Hopefully people can see me. Hello, everyone. Hello, Kent. Hello, Andy. And lots of other people whose names I recognise. Hello, Janet, Darek, George Davis, you're in twice. That's good to see you're in twice. Very keen. Going down the list, Leszek Kwasniewski's in here. We have, oh dear, lots and lots of people. Terry, good to see you, Terry. Zoltan as well, Tonka. Anyway, plenty of people in. That's really good to see. And hopefully we're going to have a good session. Right, I'll disappear off the camera and I'll start sharing my screen and we can start the presentation. So hopefully.
So I request everybody to keep their mics on mute.
Yes, please. What, me as well?
Optionally, I mean, you can turn your cameras off as well. I don't think that helps if you're on mute, unless you want us to see you smiling. And we'll let Neil take it away.
Thank you. All right. So I think I've got the honor of being the first one on the series to present, which is really good. So let's hopefully make it a good one. I'm going to talk about compelling reasons for adopting Data Vault 2. There are 7. Actually, I have 9 on the list, and I've cut it down to 7 for this presentation. So you can come up with more or less. I've settled on 7 here. Right. So if you want to sign off now, this is the takeaway message, really. I think Data Vault 2's time seems to have come, and we've got some evidence for that in terms of the popularity of Data Vault 2 now and the number of inquiries we're getting at the moment. So Data Vault 2 is a hot topic. It seems to be very popular. And I think the reason for that is it offers a lot of the features that businesses are looking for when they're building out a new modern data platform. These data platforms have to fit inside a larger scale data transformation program very often. And there are other pressures out there like GDPR or PII protection processes on the way that right. So what are these features and how do they help? First of all, a bit about me. If you've not met me before, I know a number of you have seen me and come into our sessions as well. My name's Neil Strange. I run a consultancy business in the UK called Data Vault, so it's good to name yourself after what you do. I've got many, many years of consultancy experience behind me, more than I want to count actually at the moment, certainly more than fingers and toes to count them. I'm the chairman of the UK Data Vault user group, which meets monthly. It's well worth checking that out as well if you can. And I'm a specialist in Data Vault 2 data platforms, and I spend a lot of my day job coaching clients on adoption of Data Vault and the Data Vault method itself. If you want to get hold of me, our web address is below there, data-vault.com, and my email address as well, if anyone wants to be in touch. Worth checking us out, and I'll come back to this a bit later in terms of further learning resources. What we do as a business, last slide about us, promise on the presentation, we do the whole range of advice around adoption of Data Vault. So we help clients work on strategic planning, business cases for a new project, proofs of concept. We help to modernize and migrate to new platforms, deal with information governance implications of that, and provide coaching and training on Data Vault projects themselves. Increasingly, we're seeing data science, machine learning applications coming out, which is very exciting areas of application of the Data Vault system itself. So that's enough about us. Come back to really what value do organizations seek from their data projects? Now, what I'm talking about here is when organizations undertake a data transformation program. So the thing about data transformation is it's more than just a data warehouse. This is where organizations are seeking to automate, to modernize, and to re-engineer how their business works. And when they do that, they're looking for five types of benefits out from it. So the first benefit they're looking for is to seek competitive advantage. They're investing in data in order to deliver an advantage over the competition, to give them an edge, to give them insights which allow them to compete on an unfair advantage over the competition. They're also looking to get a greater understanding of the customer service and personalization aspects of their business. So the better they can tailor and understand their customers, the more they can fine-tune the services they offer to offer the greatest value. And it also allows them to better segment their client base for targeting their services and marketing efforts. Operational efficiency. Well, if you can understand your business and how it operates, then you'll get a great degree of efficiency through in how you operate. You can eliminate activities that cause noise, get in the way of delivering good service, and you can also eliminate steps that are hampered by lack of access to good data. So I'm always said in many organizations that all the existence of spreadsheets and so forth is a sign that that data isn't being shared effectively across systems. So you know, to allow a business process to flow from one system to another, you have to enter data into one system, export it into a spreadsheet, do some work with it, and then use that to enter data back into another system. You can eliminate that through modernizing your data and standardizing on data. That's a good thing to be able to achieve. Of course, you've got regulatory pressures, so organizations trying to be compliant with GDPR, CCPA, and many other regulations that are coming in across the world, improving the security of the data and better handling of personal data. All that's coming in. And then finally, data projects today are being run as another way of trying to deliver value. So many organizations have tried to transform regularly over the last few years and have often failed to deliver the transformation. And data is seen as another way to attempt to make these modernizations and transformations work. So there we are, 5 things that organizations look for when they are trying to deliver a data project. Those 5 points are summarized from a book called Data-Driven Business Transformation by Carruthers and Jackson. So if you want to see a detailed discussion of all these, I'd recommend you have a look at that particular book. All right, so fine. These are the values that have been looked for, but they've got to be delivered in a particular way. So a lot of people are trying to deliver value with agility. So they need to have a way of being responsive and to rapidly respond to customer needs or to their user needs inside their organization. Cost effectively. So everything has to be at an acceptable ever-reducing price. And I think the perception that everything has to always ever reduce in price is coming through from the cloud providers. So with cloud providers out there, they're always advertising new services, new pricing regimes, and every time they do that, you can buy more for less. And you need to be delivering the same thing inside your organization as well. So whatever you implement has to be faster, cheaper, all the time, steadily improving value for money. Automation, that's really tied into the cost effectiveness and agility. The more you can automate the boring stuff, the more you can automate the difficult stuff and use humans in the loop for your value adding or unusual steps only, the more you can be agile, the more you can be cost effective in the way you do delivery. So automation's here to stay, and automation can be harnessed in terms of delivering those values we talked about earlier. Accuracy and auditability, very, very important today. Accuracy, well, you don't want to be making decisions on the basis of inaccurate data. You know, a wrong decision today can have many consequences downstream that you don't want to accept. And auditability as well. So the ability to say, yes, we did make a decision, it was on the basis of this information here, and we're absolutely sure that that information is traceable back to an original source or an original source system. So you've got a fairly confident position you can be in to start making your decisions going forward here. Timeliness. I think I still have a few clients who are doing weekly updates to their data warehouse. A number still doing overnight updates, but increasingly your end users are asking for near real time. Whatever that means, whether they mean within the hour or within the minutes or within the second. Increasingly real time or pipe-driven architectures are important to deliver the value that they're looking for from their data transformations. And finally on the list, we have to be governed. So whatever is performed in terms of automation and agility and accuracy, we need to make this visible so people can see that these values are being delivered. We have to be secure. We have to make sure that the data we have is only accessible by those who have the right to see it, and that we can show that that is the case. We have to be controlled. So we have to show evidence that the data we are sharing is subject to governance, that people are accessing data with permission, and that we've actually thought about who should see data and what they should see as part of that process. And then finally, in the governance side, is that data that's provided should be respected by the people who access it and use it, so that they actually believe the data is correct, that they should be respecting it in terms of the way they use it, the way they protect that data, and the way they act upon the insights that they get out of that. Okay, so we've got to mix these two things together. Yeah, we've got, sorry, beg your pardon. In terms of delivering the transformation, organizations are, of course, working on very large scale transformations at the moment. A data warehouse is an important part of that. But a data warehouse on its own is not enough. Yes, we have other system changes going on around that. So upstream systems and downstream systems that interact with the data warehouse that support the business processes and the business delivery underway. We also have to look at people and process changes. So what is the culture like for data? Are we in a good culture for self-service, for example? Have we got the processes in place that will underpin the safe handling of data? So the data transformation underway, a data warehouse is an important part of it, but it needs to dovetail with and fit in with other changes that are underway. So the value of a data warehouse is as a necessary but not sufficient part of achieving a larger scale strategic change inside your organization. So this is where Data Vault 2 comes in. Is it able to deliver us a data warehouse, but to deliver that in a way that's agile, cost effective, with automation, accurately and auditably, in a timely way that can be governed. And I think I'll show you over the next few slides that Data Vault has these sorts of features that are needed, and that's probably why it's an important architecture now. It's developed in popularity because it's answering these particular questions. Right, so Data Vault 2, is it popular? Here's a graph from our own website, actually, which is looking at the traffic we're getting on Data Vault itself. We have a What is Data Vault webpage, and it's showing you the graph from 1st of January, the beginning of last year, through to the end of the year there. And we actually experienced about 150% growth over that part. I'm sorry we haven't shown the axis on the left, but we're getting, at the moment, we're getting thousands of visitors a month in, unique visitors a month in, on the right-hand side there. So we've experienced a significant growth in interest and traffic coming in. And I was speaking with Sanjay earlier, just before we got started here, and he's seeing the same thing in terms of demand for training and certification. So I think we're seeing here that Data Vault is getting out there. People are seeing that it delivers the benefits that we're looking for, and are actually interested in applying these projects to their own organizations. So what does Data Vault actually offer that drives this popularity? So this is where the 7 things come in. I think Data Vault is particularly good in supporting the agile ways of working. It's additive, it's scalable, it's very productive in the way that it works. It's auditable, it works at enterprise scale, and its integration is very integrated way of working. So it brings in data from many sources and integrates them to work well together. Let's have a look at what we mean by this. So let's have a look at integration. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'll repeat you a story that I've heard from, I'm going to steal from Bill Inmon. So apologies to Bill if he hears me repeat one of his stories, but I think this is a really important point he makes. And he says, he talks about an energy business that decided it was a good idea to get into big data and analytics, and that this business had heard about all the wonderful things you could do with data science. So what they did was they invested in a big Hadoop cluster. They brought some expensive data scientists into the company, brought them in as staff members, and then they uploaded several years' history of data about consumption by their customer base. So all the metadata about consumption. And they put the data scientists to work really hard. But at the end of that period, the data scientists came back and said, we've discovered that your customers use more energy when it's cold. That's all they could find in that data set. Now, Bill's point on that is that some data sets are what he calls a data desert. In other words, they contain a lot of volume, but actually the structure in there, the structural information, the insights you can gain from that data are very limited. There's very little feature set inside there. And I think the point he's trying to make is that you can only really get an insight out into these data sets if you join them to other data sets. So for example, if they had another data set of their customer base and maybe information about the quality of housing by area or the average income by area, and they were able to join that data set to their original one, they'd have been able to slice the data in different ways and maybe get some really very good insights out. I'm getting questions about slides. Yes, slides will be made available afterwards, no problem. Yes, I'll cut a PDF and I'll send it to Sanjay, and you're very welcome to release this to anyone who wants to access it, so no problem. Okay, moving on from there. Right, so the point I was trying to make is that integration is very important. It's too difficult for your average end user to manage. You can't just serve them up raw data sets and say, here you are, you do that joining, you join those sets together and work out what insights you need here. You do need to sort of pre-join and pre-integrate that data in order to deliver the value. And that's really what Data Vault's very good at. It combines different data sources around these addressable keys, the hubs and links that you have in your model. It provides the integration in a traceable way, so you know where the data came from. And in some senses, it's reversible. In other words, you can find, if you load something in and do some integration work, if you find you've made a mistake, you can actually undo the changes you've made, undo that integration, because of the way that the satellites are stored sort of separately underneath these integration keys. So it's really very good at the integration support. Enterprise. Often say that if all you're building in your data warehouse is a focus on a very narrow data set, then really Data Vault's not for you. It can help you, but it's not being used to its full power. See, what Data Vault's really good at is building out an enterprise model, in other words, a data model of various aspects of your business, and then tying them together into a joined up model of how your business operates. Now, obviously, this is a prize that enterprise architects have looked for a long time, and there are techniques out there for how you can build up an enterprise-wide data model. Data Vault takes these enterprise models, physicalizes them just a little bit, and then offers up this integrated view where you can possibly start with HR data and navigate across the service, and then look at customer information and maybe a bit of sales as well, and do joined up inquiries and queries over that data set. So Data Vault gives you the ways of getting this all together. Many methods are heavily focused on extracting small data sets for particular purposes. Data Vault is more general purpose than that. Auditability. This is so important nowadays. You don't want to have, particularly for things like personally identifiable information, you don't want a customer to make an inquiry about some way you've treated them. Maybe you've contacted them on the wrong number, or something has happened to them as a result of the work that your organization or the service your organization has delivered to them. And they then come back and query, well, what did you know about me? What decisions did you make? What automated processing have you done to my data? How have you treated me? Is this different from other people in your organization? Are you biased against me for who I am? You need to have very good auditable, traceable data sets in there to know what you knew when, how you applied that data against those individuals, whether that data is raw data, whether you've derived data and made decisions based on derived data. All those questions need to be answered if you're doing an audit around a particular inquiry that's made. Now the same thing would go, for example, also if you had a financial audit coming in and your auditors wish to trace some financial data back through systems and so forth, and even for calculations of insurance premiums, all those sorts of things, you need to make sure that the data you're working with is clear about where it came from, when you knew about it, what values it had, what you've processed. And Data Vault, in the way that it constructs its data model, preserves a lot of that history for you so that you can reconstruct, you can answer questions about that. You can say, yes, we had a transaction on that date, and therefore we knew about that information after that point. So that provides you with a very good audit trail, a very good way of explaining what's going on. And I've heard stories of clients where audits have happened. You go to the Data Vault, they take a look at the audit trail in there, and the auditor gives up immediately and moves over to another area where they can get a better result. So Data Vault's really locked down in terms of that feature. Productivity. Well, the whole point of Data Vault is to automate. The whole point of Data Vault is to make the loading of the Data Vault as productive as possible. So we have standard patterns, we have the hub links and satellites. It doesn't take long for data modelers to get their ideas around hubs, links and satellites and how to model out the data platform using those terms. But once you've got those standard building blocks in place, that allows you to template things. So all the SQL looks very, very similar. That allows you to standardize. You can use metadata, and you can generate a lot of the data load patterns that are coming in. And it varies to who you talk to. It can be 80% up to 95% or more of the ETL. It doesn't really matter what the number is there. The significant thing is that most of your ETL, particularly on data load from source, becomes automatable, generatable. That means your developers can now focus on other things like writing tests or business rules, things that you generally didn't have time for with older platform and architectures. And because you do that, because you've got a more productive team, that allows you to reduce the team size a bit, slightly more experienced on average inside the team. And smaller teams give you other benefits in terms of reducing management overhead, reducing the time it takes to make decisions on design, and really dramatically improving the communication across the team. So it's a win-win, really. The templating, the generation, the reduction of the team size, and then the impact that has on their performance in terms of how they do their development work. Scalable. Well, hopefully you are aware of this, but the Data Vault architecture works from very tiny data sizes, gigabytes in size, right the way up to tens of petabytes or beyond, without changing the fundamental way the architecture works. Okay, well, what does that mean? That means that you can, I'll come on to this in a moment on the agile point, but it does mean you can start off small and then build up and build up and build up. And you don't have to re-engineer what you do when you hit a performance threshold. Yes, the Data Vault will scale with you. So you can keep adding and adding and adding to the size of the system, build up, and there's no point where you have to stop and say to management, that architecture we started 2 years ago, we've suddenly outgrown it. We're going to have to rework at this. And that's really, really useful. And if you're working in a cloud environment, with Elastic Cloud out there, the cloud also can grow with you and scale up as you grow there. So this is one of the reasons why the blob stores are very popular, because they can grow with you, and Snowflake as well in particular, which has an ability to grow with you as well and grow and scale with you. So that's really very important. Additive. I've got a number of clients who are just beginning to see the real benefits of this. What they're doing is they start off small. They kind of build a working prototype of a Data Vault system. They get data in and loading, and then they want to start scaling up and addressing other areas. Now, most of these are used to, with older architectures, when you build a prototype, you end up throwing it away and then starting again and re-engineering it. And they're particularly used to doing that when you're doing data modeling. Yeah, if you start off with a data model, you do some work, and then you want to rework that data model, you basically have to throw away what it is you've built and restart again. But the thing about Data Vault is, as you build out your models, you're identifying these hubs and links. And hubs are business terms that are very important or have some substance within the organization. So a hub would be a customer or an organization unit or a product or something like that. Now, these hubs tend to survive. So you do your prototype, you flush out some hubs in that, then you start to do the next project, and you find that if you've got new terms coming in, you just create new hubs and you link them to the old hubs and you expand out. You don't actually rework what you've done already. Maybe a little bit, but generally not much. So your investments are growing. You're not having to go back all the time and re-engineer and rework what you've done to allow the data model to grow. The other thing that people who work a lot with Data Vault will tell you is that the links are very powerful because they kind of trap changes if they do happen. What do I mean by that? Well, a link is effectively a many-to-many link between hubs. So if for some reason you had to change a hub and move it around, the impact of it can only filter down to the satellites attached to it or to the surrounding link tables. It never goes any further than that. So refactoring impacts are very, very limited in there. So yeah, the point I'm trying to make is that you build out your data vault, you find that you're adding to it most of the time, and if you do need to do any little bits of refactoring, you find that the impacts of them are quite tiny. Okay, and the last point on here, point 7, is agility. I should really put this first. What can I say really? It's agile now is so fundamental, so adopted across the client base. Everything has to be agile, everything has to be delivered in an agile way. And data warehousing is a real challenge to build out using an agile approach, particularly more old-fashioned ways of delivering ETL and building out data models. If you look at the old ways of doing it, you'd have very large pieces of work that need to be finished before you can realize value. With a data vault, what you can do now is deliver very thin slices of data from end to end in an incremental way. So for example, if you had maybe 50 tables to bring in from a source system, there's nothing to stop you bringing in one table, modeling it, building out the whole end-to-end delivery, and delivering some data at the far end, and then adding to that step by step, adding a table at a time or a few tables at a time through various sprints, and building out the target data model and the target data environment that you're working towards. That's a really completely different way of working and delivers really early value back out to your end users. So even one table, even one hub actually can provide some value because it gives you information about the number of things, for example, you have in a system. So basically the data vault, I believe, is the really first method that really supports agile ways of working. So you can do incremental build and design. That makes everything modular, adaptive, and flexible. And increasingly, I'm doing test-driven development with my clients. So we're able to specify what comes out the far end, build up the data vault channels and test that we are delivering the results that we promised in there. And refactoring is supported very nicely in the agile structure as well. So that's pretty good. Right, so those are the 7 points. So really, in conclusion, has Data Vault 2's time come? Well, I think it has, because it offers the features that the businesses are looking for when building their new modern data platforms. It does things in the right way for warehousing that the organizations need to fit in their larger change programs that are underway. Don't take my word for it. So try it out for yourself. So I'd suggest you seek advice if you're looking to experiment in this area, explore your needs and circumstances, or do some research and read the Data Vault books that are out there. I've got a few images on the right there. So we've got Dan and Michael's book, we've got Patrick Huber's book, The Data Vault Guru, John Giles' Elephant in the Fridge, and Kent's book on Agile Data Engineering. They're all very interesting books and worthwhile getting a hold copies of. But research, read those books, get trained if you can in the method, and then maybe have a look at a prototype to demonstrate what's possible inside your organization. Right, so if you need further information, Data Vault Alliance is a really excellent source for community. So members in there are able to connect across, share knowledge. Dan and other experts are regularly in there answering questions, and there's a very valuable knowledge base being built up in there for different ways to approach Data Vault in different technologies. Well worth going to, and also offering your training and certification on that. We sponsor the Data Vault UK user group, which has regular meetups once a month online. We've recorded quite a lot of the recent ones, and they're available for listening to if you want to check us out on YouTube. And we have presentation downloads and videos available there from that link. Now, tomorrow, we've actually got, very honoured, we've got Dan Linstead talking tomorrow at that user group about the future of Data Vault. So please do come along, register for that. We've already got a record number of registrations, and we're looking to really bust the target this time. So hopefully we can get a lot of you in there to hear what Dan has to say about where Data Vault's heading. In terms of also underneath, there's our website. We have a What is Data Vault webpage. That's got a lot of links there out to free material and other people's blogs and so forth, which you can use as a sort of start point for your learning journey. And if you're into prototyping, we have a free tool called DBT Vault, which plugs into the DBT tool, which is also a free open source tool. And that will allow you to play around with the various Data Vault loading patterns and generation, working with Snowflake as a database, and that will help you get started on your journey, understand more about how Data Vault works, and sort of prepare you for building out a larger project. And there's documentation. We have a community on Slack as well working, and you can check us out on the GitHub as well to download that. So worth having a look at that if you're interested. And that's really it. Thank you very much. If you want to talk to us, please contact us. We'd be very happy to speak to anyone. And we are very happy to answer questions now. So hand back to you now, Sanjay.
Thanks, Neil. I think for the questions, the best way to do it, because there's so many people on, is if you could type it in the box instead of unmuting your mics, it might be better. And then I can just read out the questions one by one, and it'll be much easier for Neil to answer them. I think one of the questions that did come earlier was how many actual real-life implementations in production do you know about? How many companies use Data Vault 2.0? And I think Kent Graziano, who's from Snowflake, answered that they have over 300 customers just at Snowflake, which is,
yeah,
I mean,
it's
that's great.
Phenomenal, actually, how it's growing at the moment. And yes, if you'd asked me this 2 years ago, there were much smaller list of companies working with this. Some of the ones I were working with actually wanted to keep the fact they were doing it secret, because they saw themselves as early adopters and getting an edge over their competition. But now I think extensive interest from the finance and insurance sector coming through, because a lot of those features I was talking about are very important to them. But certainly well beyond that and extensively beyond that. And I think you're right, probably Kent has a better view than we do because of his position across all of the customers that you have out there. Do we have anyone from Warescape? I think Warescape has the same experience as well. They're getting a lot more interest as well around Data Vault.
Yeah, Warescape also launched a tool that was purely a Data Vault 2.0 tool at the Worldwide Data Vault conference a couple of years ago. So they kind of focused on Data Vault 2.0.
Yeah, which is yeah, really good. We're using that with a client at the moment. So yeah, very, very, very useful thing.
Yeah, so a company wouldn't do that if they didn't have enough footprint.
No, that's right. That's right. Okay, so let's go down the question list. Multi-language data descriptions linked to a hub register. Oh my goodness, that's a good question. If you work with multilingual, Sanjay? I've got a general answer to that one, but have you done some multilingual stuff?
Yes, actually I have, and I've just the thing is I can throw out ideas here, but unless I know their actual use case, it'd be hard to answer. But I've said that the best way I look at it, and this is just based on the question here, is I would separate the satellites because I would assume that they're coming from different sources across the world, the information. But again, it depends on the environment and how the data is coming.
And make sure you're using an appropriate character set consistently across the base as well to cope with the languages that you're bringing in.
Yeah. So the next question is from Sunshine Yang. How do you perform test for agile development? Manually, unit testing, user test? What's the checkpoints for testing?
Okay, so I'm going to be a bit opinionated here, so people can shoot me down. But I tend to find that if you're testing a data warehouse, it's very specific how this works. Unit tests don't generally work because you have to build so much scaffolding around the system to get the tests running that you're kind of then left with integration tests as the starting point. Integration tests basically testing that the data is flowing correctly from one layer of the model to the next layer. That means that most of the testing you're doing is reconciliation. So is the data here over there and we haven't lost anything in translation, in the transmission of that data? And reconciliations can be automated. So you can write some test generators out that test the integrity of the data, checks the reconciliation of the data, and also checking that, and then the last thing we do is we sometimes build a reconciliation mart out the far end of the data vault. And the idea in the reconciliation mart is it reconstructs the source data for you. So we get data arriving from the outside into staging, we load it into the data vault, and then we reconstruct it back to its original form again, just to prove that data hasn't been lost in the way through. Yeah, and then it's fairly easy to say, does this table look the same as that table, to verify that we have correct processing going on.
And I think we've had some, sorry to interrupt, Neil. I think we had some excellent presentations from you and from Intact Financial on testing at the WWDVC. There was a lot of automation, even in the testing side, which was good to see.
That's it. I even at that, I gave a demo of a test suite running. So if people want access to that video, they'll have to come through you for it. But yes, we have something there. Maybe I could do one in future for the group as well, if you want me to. Yeah, we've moved on a little bit since I did that demo.
All right. So next question is, I'm just going to read this out. I would like to know your opinion about using Data Vault 2.0 on Hadoop Hive and persist the data that's materializes instead of just streaming.
Oh, why?
Build a Python framework which automates everything and helps a lot to reduce ETL development, already used on Rakuten and Swisscom, two big companies. Oh, I think this is more of a success stories.
Okay,
thank you for sharing this.
I'm glad to hear a success on this. A lot of companies now, well, Hive is very rare now to see a company starting out down that route, purely because there are probably now better ways of running on a large cluster of data. Yeah, Hive, of course, Hive supports SQL. It does work for Data Vault, but I just don't see it very often nowadays coming in.
Yeah, I'm actually, on the other hand, I see quite a bit of adoption. So,
okay.
And again, it depends. The good thing is what we really have to do is get the people who are on Hadoop already to either use it or to, if it's not working for them, then to switch to something that works. But the people who are good at it, who are using it, are actually, they know how to use it correctly. So they know what they're doing. So I've seen those pretty good success stories on that too.
Okay, that's great. I'm helping a client at the moment move away from Hive onto Snowflake. So
that's a common story. That's a common story. Yeah. I'm hearing wonderful things about vault speed.
Oh my! Well, actually, there are a lot of good tools out there. He says, being neutral. Each of them have their own strengths and weaknesses.
So again, I haven't seen vault speed. I've heard wonderful things as well, is what I'll say.
Yeah, exactly. So yes, please have a look at them. Vault Speed's an online play, so you're using an SAS solution there. Yeah, it's. I have also heard good things about them, but there are other tools out there, and you need to be careful what you choose matches your particular needs.
Yeah,
Hey
this
guys, this is Kent. I actually met with them last week because they wanted to present to me a little bit about what they've been doing and the successes that they're having with specifically, obviously, Snowflake customers. And so they are definitely gaining momentum. We saw them at WWDBC in Hanover in the fall of 2019 when we had our last one there. And they've made a huge amount of progress, including they've got, they said they had 4 pretty major companies in Europe in production on Snowflake using Vault Speed, and a number of more that were kind of in their POC stages. So
right.
they're making great progress. It's definitely something worth looking at, as Neil said. There's more and more out there, and I, because of my position at Snowflake, a lot of them come to me to show me what they've got, because they have Snowflake customers and they're doing Data Vault, all of that. And there's a lot of strong players out there now.
I would agree. And if you want to see a demo of it running, they did present at our user group. I think 2 or 3 sessions ago. They have a case study of Vault Speed rather, working in a client in a bank. So it's worth checking out the video for that.
Excellent. I think the next question probably works for both Kent and you. Do you have a presentation which demonstrates Data Vault in a Snowflake implementation?
Oh, yes, I've had this question before. It's very difficult to build up a demo without building a full-fledged Data Vault out. What I have, if you go to our DBT Vault website, we do have a kind of a demo we've developed in there, which runs against the TPCH dataset. So it would allow you to build out a step-by-step example of a Data Vault running against that dataset. So that's the closest we've got.
Yeah, and that's the best one, because when you have a Snowflake account, you automatically get a free share of the TPCH data set. It just shows up in your Snowflake account as a database, so you can use that as the source. And in fact, that's what we did internally when we were testing out over the last couple of years inside of Snowflake. And even that's what drove the hands-on lab that we did in Hanover in 2019. So that is absolutely, that's the best way to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Somebody is asking about Data Vault versus Data Mesh. I don't know what that is. So
I've got a working answer for this one. If you look at Data Mesh, it's very interesting architecture that's being proposed. But what they do sort of recommend in there is that you have the data warehouse itself becomes almost like a microservice in its own right, if you can call it a microservice. And that is that your source systems provide data via some API calls, so you can get access to logs and information. So in some ways, the source systems have done some pre-cleaning and aggregation for you. You can get data out from them through a data contract, but you still need to be able to load it in some way. You still have to integrate the different data views together, which is exactly where Data Vault has its strengths. And in that way, the Data Vault or the data warehouse you're building becomes a microservice in its own right. That's how I think it works together.
The one thing I'd comment on here is a lot of people think of Data Vault as purely the technical solution, but it's an overall system of building everything out, which tells you even how to build your team. I mean, the scalability is not just about the technology and the data, it's also about your teams and people and all your ways of working and everything. It is a complete system of business intelligence is what it's called, and that's for a reason. It's not focused just on modeling and integration, which are important pieces, but it has everything, including templates on how to build and how to take data out and everything like that.
Yeah. Okay, we run out of questions.
Well, when you run out of questions, it's a good time to stop everything. Well, Thank you so much for your time, Neil. Really
welcome.
appreciate it.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see a lot of you tomorrow in the UK Data Vault user group with Dan. That would be great if you could turn up. We'd love a great turnout for that.
Excellent.
And I just added a link in the chat for everyone to a recorded webinar we did at Snowflake with Indigo AG, and Veronica, not to embarrass you, who's on the call, was our guest there. She and I discussed their use of Data Vault and Snowflake. So it's not a demo, but you can see her architecture and hear the discussion about what they've been doing in that space. So give you a little bit more about what's happening with Snowflake and Data Vault.
Yeah. Okay.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome.
And with this, I think we'll sign off. Thanks again, Neil. Thanks for everybody.
You're welcome.
Thanks for joining.